And good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening, dear scholars, great leaders, philosophers, lovers of knowledge and lovers of wisdom, creators of knowledge. Thank you very much for joining us again tonight. My name is Mazwe Majola. I'm from the Worldwide Institute of Leadership and Development. I'm your moderator tonight in this wonderful leadership session, in this community of leaders. We have heard that there is load shedding, and sadly others will be affected. We might see others being kicked out at some point, others will be joining us. So we will understand, obviously, we are living in South Africa. So thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for tuning in again tonight. We are leaders in leadership. We breathe leadership, we talk leadership, we eat, we sleep, we are leaders. Anything and everything we do is leadership, because we believe that leadership is a journey. Leadership, it's not a destination. That is why we meet here as leaders every Wednesday to sharpen each other, to correct each other, to encourage each other, and to admonish each other wherever possible. So thank you so much for joining us. A particular welcome to our members and to our regulars. I can see many of you are here, and we will not have time to acknowledge each and every one of you. But thank you so much. You know that we meet here every Wednesday, and you know that we grow together, we learn together. That is why we are here every Wednesdays. And a special welcome to those who are joining us for the very first time. If it's your first time joining us, thank you. You did a great job. You did a good thing. You will not definitely you will enjoy what you're going to see and what you're going to hear tonight. We are not going to regret why you took time to join us. So thank you so much. But please do feel free. We'd like to see you participating as well. Don't be shy or diffident. Don't hold back. Don't think it's your first time, so you just want to hear from other people. Would like to hear from you as well, because there is a very good reason why you've joined us tonight. We've got two great speakers tonight. We are discussing supportive leadership, a very important topic, ladies and gentlemen. How are we supporting each other as managers, as leaders, as scholars? How are we supporting Okay, I'm still here. Sorry about that. I'm so sorry. I seem to be kicked in and out. I hope I won't be disappearing now. So how are we supporting each other, and how are we supporting our employees, our followers, our team members? How are we supporting our children? How are we supporting people out there? So it's a broad topic. It's a very important topic, and I don't want to waste any time, because I want to give these great ladies and sisters of mine time to engage us. And then we've got my sister there, Professor Thobeka Nkomo. Thobeka is one of us. She's in our faculty, she's one of our faculty members, but also she's an academic at Wits. She's an associate professor there. And she's very, very experienced when it comes to this area that we'll be discussing about tonight. And I've got another sister of mine as well, who's not a stranger in this platform. She always attends here. Usisi Lindelwa, Xingwana-Jabuva. She's an executive coach. She has worked for many, many big companies in government and in private sector. And then she coaches so many people. So we are not going to waste any time, but I'm going to give them time to address us. We'll start with Professor Nkomo, and then once she finishes, Usis Lindelwa will follow, and then after that, we'll have a wonderful conversation, as we always do. Professor Nkomo, are you there? I can see you there, of course. We are waiting, my sister, and we would like to hear from you. We are all yours. Over to you, but thank you so much. I know you are a very busy person. Thank you so much, my sister, for availing yourself. Thank you so much for your humility, for your respect, and we'd like to hear from you and to learn from you tonight. Over to you, my sister. Over to you, Prof.
Thank you so much, Prof Majola. Good evening to the esteemed leaders, the professors, researchers, family members, colleagues, friends, and family. Good evening, and thank you so much for taking time to come and engage in this conversation tonight, which I believe this is a great conversation, as Professor Majola has alluded. And I don't take it for granted that you've made time to come and join us. And on behalf of both of us, of myself and Sis Lindelwa, would like to thank you and appreciate you for availing yourselves. And tonight we are discussing a very broad topic, but very relevant: supportive leadership. And so just to give an introduction to the conversation is that leadership can and is daunting and overwhelming at times. So it is also a competitive space. So one's well-being is crucial in whatever we do. So whether you are in a family, whether you're in a relationship, whether you're in an institution, whether you're a teacher or a researcher, you are prone to come across leadership in one way or the other, indirect or directly so. Working with your team members, working with your children, working with your colleagues. So in the midst of all, mental health and well-being, we know that it is rife these days. And therefore, self-care is very important. Hence, we are discussing this very important topic of supportive leadership. So just to put context on what we are going to discuss, I want us to think about the three questions that I will table before the conversation and maybe engage at the end of the conversation. And as we converse, I just want us to think whether are we leaders or are we supportive leaders, if I may put it directly, are we supportive leaders? And if yes, if you are a supportive leader, who's holding your ladder as a supportive leader? Just think and think about that and think about it carefully as we listen. And if you are a recipient of supportive leadership, the question is, whose shoulders are you standing on as a recipient? So that is also important, because not only supportive leaders need to lead, but also the recipients, they're standing on someone's shoulders. So whose shoulders are you standing on? And we know that I'm asking these questions because times are volatile. Volatile in the sense that in our time of leadership, things keep on changing expectedly or unexpectedly. So we have to keep up to speed with our mental well-being and skills and resources. And therefore, as times are volatile and uncertain, the questions that I've asked, the two that I've posed, calls for one to be wise and to discern when you receive or provide supportive leadership. Be wise in the sense that not everybody who's holding your ladder wishes you well, or not everybody is holding your ladder will make sure that your mental well-being is well catered for. And discern that the person who really is holding your ladder has got your best interest. And also be wise to know that you are ready to receive supportive leadership as a recipient. And in the talk, I will then also reflect on my experience in terms of the different caps that I hold. Prof Majola did indicate that I am a very busy person. in academia, in the community, and in general. I'm that person who's very involved and engaged in community. Community, maybe if I may be specific, in the church space, I'm very involved with women, young and old. So that's me. And then at the university in terms of the academic life, teaching and research. So the existing literature out there, which I had looked in terms of what supportive leadership is, I looked at the traditional definition of a leader or a supportive leader, or just a leader who will just give a task and expect results. And yet literature says with supportive leadership, you give a task, you mentor in between, and then you expect results. So whilst you are giving a task, you make sure that you provide the support that is needed, the resources that are needed, the skills that are needed, you nurture them and make sure that you sharpen your skills also if you are a person who's providing leadership. Taking note that, as I've said, that the times are volatile and times are uncertain. So I took liberty and look at the traits then that would be quite relevant for a supportive leader or a recipient of a supportive leader. And one of them was, as a supportive leader, you focus on relationships, you build them, you nurture them to make sure that those relationships are sustained. And really to build and nurture the relationships, it's not a once-off, it is a continuous process. So you need to make sure that you are intentional when you build those relationships in terms of providing supportive leadership. And your focus then, one of the traits is that you provide support, and your intention in providing support is to develop others. Whether you are a mother, whether you are a dad, whether you are a colleague, as a supportive leader, your intention it is to support and develop others. And therefore, when you support and develop, you don't just support and develop in presence only. You also make sure that because we're in a position of power, you are providing the resources that are needed, the environment that is needed, the skills that are needed. And also what is important in your quest for providing supportive leadership, you just have to be authentic and have clean and clear intentions of providing this supportive leadership to the team that you are leading or to whoever you are providing leadership to. There's no string attached. You are genuinely concerned about the support and the development of the team that you are leading, and that is your interest. And you should be somehow very empathetic, right? Because you're dealing with human beings with feelings, with emotions, with systems within themselves that they live in. So you need to make sure that you are empathetic as you provide supportive leadership and provide training. And this particularly comes in when we speak of the intention of you are building other leaders, or you're building the cohort of other leaders. When you step down or when you leave, you know that there are people that you have already groomed, and that speaks to succession plan. And when you do supportive leadership, you then cover the areas that will prepare the generation to come after you. And what I say to the recipients is that if you are a recipient of a supportive leadership, you can't receive if you don't have a teachable spirit. As a recipient, you need to have a teachable spirit, be willing, don't feel coerced to be supported, be there and be intentional, take lead of your own growth and your development, whether it is a personal or professional development. Just take lead and be willing and avail yourself to be supported and be able to shout or call for assistance. Don't keep quiet when you need assistance. So for supportive leaders, when you get into a situation, I opted to go for the concept of STAR, which I'm going to break down, that for you to be able to provide supportive leadership, we will use the phenomenon of a STAR, which when I say STAR, the S stands for you analyze the situation, the environment that you are in, the team that you are working with, what skills exist, what knowledge that is there, what is the knowledge gap, what are the resources that are there, so that when you provide the supportive leadership, you therefore align the supportive leadership with the situation that you find yourself in. And then know the task. What is it that you are intending to do with this team or in this environment? Be clear about the task. Be clear about the goal. What is it that you want to achieve at the end as the supportive leader? And take action. Don't just end up in terms of thinking about ideas. Take action. Implement, monitor, evaluate, give feedback, get feedback, provide results. And then at the end, when we look at the results, we'll be able to see and know that your efforts of providing and being received, or the skills being received well, will yield results, not only for your company or for you, but also for the person who has been the recipient of supportive leadership. So because this is most a conversation, so as I'm about to close and sum it up, the take-home message for all of us is that supportive leadership may or is not applicable in all scenarios. It may be applicable in other circumstances or organizations, but it may not be applicable to others. And those of us who are in positions of power, we should be willing to invest our time to support those who are willing and available, and those we consider to be the right people for the position or the area that we are grooming them for. Whether I will leave the right people definition to all of us to define what do we then consider as a right person for a certain position or a certain leadership role that you would be providing support to. And then do not always, as leaders, we shouldn't always expect a fine-tuned diamond or gold to say, we want a perfect person. We will not get, but let us be intentional in getting involved in the process of grooming and supporting the people that we find ourselves working with in different spaces. And therefore, to the recipients, be intentional about your growth, professional, personal. Never leave it to chance, because if you do, you may never reach or unleash your potential. And therefore, I quote, as you receive supportive leadership, do consider the question that I've asked from the book that I read by Samuel R. Chart that says, who's holding your ladder? That one should be your responsibility as a recipient and as a provider. Samuel Chart has a beautiful chapter on that. So if we look at it, it can also help us. At the end, we all know that supportive leadership, much as it sounds good and brilliant, it has got numerous challenges, because you are trying to multitask. You are trying to make sure that you cover different spaces. You are mentoring, you are leading, you are teaching, you are an administrator, you are a visionary. And therefore, it is critical that when you are busy supporting others, make sure that you take care of your own well-being so that you are forever able to provide support for those who need support. And I think for me, that I will end there so that we can then unpack and engage on the aspects that I've just highlighted. Then I will give it to my colleague, or I'll send it back to Prof to direct us how do we then move forward. Thank you, Prof.
Thank you. Thanks, my professor. Thank you very much there, Prof Nkomo. We are not going to analyze your speech or to subtract or to add. We are going straight to Sis Lindelwa, and then after that we'll be going for questions and answers and conversation. Sis Lindelwa, over to you, my sister, and once again to you, thank you so much for availing yourself. I know that you are not a stranger at this platform, but how wonderful it is to listen to you tonight, because that's what we always do here. We are leaders speaking to other leaders, peers to speaking to other peers. And I always say that 90% of people in the call are our past speakers. So it's so great that tonight we are empowered by you. Thank you so much, and over to you, my sister.
Thank you so much, Professor Mazwe, and thanks to my sister, Professor Nkomo. I think you did what you have covered. And good evening to everyone. I think I want to bring in a different angle as an executive coach. I do want to spend some time on explaining why supportive leadership is important at this stage, now that we are in the 21st century. What are we seeing as coaches when we coach leaders out there? I think Prof Nkomo has already indicated that we are operating in volatile times. There's a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot of change, unprecedented change. There's a lot of complexity and ambiguity. So leaders, for the first time, do not have all the answers. They deal with a lot of ambiguity and they are juggling a whole lot of issues, but they don't have all the answers, unlike in the past. And therefore, it's a very, very stressful time for leaders and their teams. The second reason why supportive leadership is important in the 21st century is because leaders, more and more, we see it everywhere, are expected to do more with less. You go into look at the private sector, you look at the public sector, you go into any office, you find that employees' teams are stretched. And it sounds like it's a permanent phenomenon. Teams are expected to do more with less. And therefore, leaders are expected to juggle and find ways of stretching their teams and getting them to do more with less and supporting them all the way. Professor Nkomo spoke about the stressful environments that employees operate in. Part of the stress comes from the fact that people are just having to perform, but having very, very few resources that they are dealing with. And then in the home front, if you look in the home front, we were happy when we started working from home. But you find that if you don't set clear boundaries, you will sit in that office, home office, or wherever you sit and work for long, long hours. And you hardly, while you are sitting at home, you hardly see your family. So it is important to set boundaries because the stress levels can be very high. And we are seeing as coaches an increasing rate of mental health challenges, which is very, very worrying. The other trend that we are picking up is the fact that, remember now, us baby boomers are out of the working environment or almost on the way out. Millennials are in leadership positions. Your Generation Z have also started working. So leaders are having to manage diverse teams with different interests, and they have to support all of them and bear in mind the different interests that they have. Support, align them continuously, ensure that they continuously communicate with these teams and build a common vision. It is not easy. It is not easy because millennials are looking for a different offering in a job. As baby boomers are looking for something else, your Generation Z are looking for something else. So as leaders, while we support our teams, leaders themselves need guidance and support on how to lead and support their teams effectively. So what we are finding as coaches and as leaders and their teams is that what you learned at business school doesn't apply anymore. Today's challenges, they require us to continuously learn, co-create solutions as we go, Somebody was saying you fix the plane while you are up there in the air. So that's the environment we are operating in. But we're also seeing leaders who are dealing with very demanding stakeholders. We see it everywhere. Stakeholders who know their rights, who demand transparency and good governance, who have access to information, access to international best practice. So you can no longer now, for instance, if you were a chief executive officer of a mine in the olden days, you would rise as an engineer and then you would become a CEO. You wouldn't have to worry about the communities that live around the mine. You wouldn't have to worry about other stakeholders. You wouldn't have to worry about climate change activists. But today, as a leader and your team, there's a need to get support so that you are able to manage all these critical stakeholders that can take your business off the rails if you are not careful. Social media is another area that needs to be looked at because it can damage the reputation of an organization just like that. So the reputation of companies and teams and their leaders, they always need to make sure that they pay attention to their reputation. Now, what we are finding is that no one heroic leader, like in the olden days, no one heroic authoritarian leader can lead an organization. It doesn't happen anymore. And therefore, when we coach leaders, we afford them a safe space where they can openly say, I don't have all the answers. I spend sleepless nights on these issues that I've just covered and many, many other issues. And I do need support. I do need a safe space where I can talk about these things. Then there are trends that we are picking up as we coach leaders, that they as part of supportive leadership, more and more leaders encourage teamwork because answers, as I said, cannot come from one person. So teamwork, breaking those silos, because in most leadership teams, you find that the finance director just looks at finance, your HR director looks at HR. But we're finding more and more that leaders have got to break those silos and understand the business more holistically so that they can operate much better. But also what we are finding as part of supportive leadership, we are finding more collaboration, more partnerships, more teamwork, as I said earlier, and even partnerships with external stakeholders. They make input. So when we coach leaders now, we normally say, okay, bring your stakeholders into this coaching room. Bring future generations as a stakeholder into this coaching room. Bring the planet as a stakeholder. If you were to sit here in 20 years' time, what would you have done differently if you had all the resources in your hand? So that's what we are finding. We're also finding that more and more organizations encourage and support supportive leadership. We are finding that they encourage their leaders to take a more coaching approach towards leadership rather than being a dictator. And as Prof Nkomo was saying, rather than just telling the teams what to do and expect results, we're seeing more leaders working with their teams in a coaching style and a mentorship style of leadership rather than just telling. So it's no longer enough to be technically strong. You really have, as a leader, to have the ability to understand your team, their challenges, and all the pains and challenges that they deal with, but also your diverse stakeholders. Yes, Prof Nkomo covers the qualities that we are seeing more and more of: empathy, deep listening skills, deep listening, hearing what is said and what is not said. Because there are things that are not said, but if you listen quite closely, you are able to hear those. And also just to stay close to your teams and be able to pick up the early signs of mental health challenges. And we see a lot of those, like depression and just general mental health issues. Remember, especially after the pandemic, a lot of people lost family members. A lot of people lost, most companies closed, some companies closed. So some people are having to carry more than their own immediate family financially. So, and that brings a lot of stress. So that's one trend that we are seeing, that managers are and leaders are expected to be more supportive to their teams and pick up the early signs of mental health issues. Globalization is something else that we are picking up as we coach leaders. Now, leaders are now expected to be coaching teams that are sitting all over the world with different cultures, different time zones, and they need to be supported differently because they are sitting in different places. We're also, and they've got different needs. We're also seeing continuous learning because of the change that we are experiencing globally. We are seeing the need for continuous learning and co-learning, learning together as a team and the leader, because no one has got all the answers. The other trend that we are picking up is that we are seeing as part of support leadership, because it's no longer enough to have coaching as an elitist service offering. We see it, we see companies now spreading it right across, and we are seeing democratization of coaching and an effort to ensure that more and more people, even communities, access these coaching services. So what are the qualities that we are looking for in a supportive leader? The ability to empower. I think some of them have been covered by Prof Nkomo already. The ability to inspire, the ability to delegate work effectively, the ability to communicate, the ability to accept that you don't have all the answers. You will make mistakes, but you must learn from those mistakes. And leaders must also be accessible and create a team that is autonomous and that is able to operate autonomously and is empowered. So what we do as coaches and as managers now in their role as coaches are expected to create a safe space for employees to be able to learn and to be able to cope in this very, very difficult environment that we operate in. So I think Prof Nkomo covered this one, but I'll re-emphasize it. It is important to be authentic. I'm going to talk about, because this is Women's Month. Women bring a lot of value because I think being supportive as leaders, women, to them that comes naturally. Hopefully, if we don't change and become like men, because it does happen sometimes when we join the corporate world or we get into leadership positions, we then change and we become very macho. But basically, these qualities that we are looking for in supportive leaders come naturally to women. Women can be nurturing, they are good listeners, they are generally very supportive. So I think my plea to women leaders and to all leaders in the 21st century, women must not change who they are, they must remain authentic. The second thing that I want to mention is that Africa has brought a lot to the world in terms of coaching. I think we brought into the world Ubuntu. I saw my colleague there, Usem Tsima. We brought Ubuntu coaching as Africa into the world. So supportive leadership comes naturally to us as Africans. So we must not be ashamed to use that and take that into the world. The last point I want to make is around youth. I think we are very lucky as Africa. We have a very young continent. I think more than 60% of our population is young. Professor Mazwe, the challenge then is, as we talk about supportive leadership, how many, even in this room, how many young people are there? How do we support young people? Because the future is theirs. We talk about Agenda 2063 as Africa. But when you look at Agenda 2063, some of us won't be there in 2063. It is the young people that must be there, learn how to lead and lead properly and be able to take the continent forward and create a prosperous and peaceful Africa. So I want to leave it there, and maybe we can then start the conversation. And once more, thank you very much for the opportunity to present in this forum. Thank you.
Wow, thank you. Thanks, Sis Lindelwa, and both of you, to Prof Nkomo. Thank you so much for those insights. I'm not going to be jealous and rob the people who have left everything to come here their time. So I want to give you time. You've had two speakers addressing us on this important topic, supportive topic. Let's engage them and engage each other. As we always say here, it's a community of leaders. Let's hear what you have that can assist us. I saw the first comment there from my sister, Professor Mzinduna, saying that Prof Nkomo is her mentor. So you can see already that where is this mentorship and coaching. Prof Nduna, do you want to be the first one to come in there, my sister?
Thank you very much, Prof, and thank you to the community of leaders in leadership. And I would like to thank both speakers for these insightful words today. And I'm sure that Dr. Nkomo, wherever she is, she's probably smiling that I posted this comment. And I just want to explain, because we're talking about caring today and making sure that you've got people to hold you. You know, there's something called a symbiotic relationship, and I think that is what we have with Dr. Nkomo. And I want to advise the leaders in this platform that is very important. It's a give and take relationship. It's where when you give, you also take something from the same relationship. And in that way, you are leading each other. And in that way, you are able to see that in this person, there are certain things that I can take and learn, just as there are certain things they can take and learn from me, which puts our, leadership at an equal footing, which makes us peers in leadership. Because remember, we are leaders in leadership and learning as well. So we learn from each other. So I can safely say, there is the content of our work, which is what we do in this field. For example, I'm in academy, and so is Professor Nkomo. So there is the academic work and the academic leadership, in the sense that some people will be ahead of other people. But also in the same breath, there's also the leadership that in this platform we mainly are about, which is not necessarily the content of our jobs, which is about the character, which is about the context, which is about making sure that we pull each other as we lead. And I think that is what I have experienced in women like Dr. Nkomo and many other women from whom I have learned a lot about management and leadership. And from, those women can say the same thing about me and say, but Prof, we've learned a lot from you as well. But I think it's that symbolic relationship that I appreciate. Thank you.
Powerful, powerful, Prof. And really, I think that's a power of it, that symbolic relationship, because that's where you learn from each other. There's no one who's inferior than the other one. There's no one who's lesser than the other one. Each party recognizes that I can and will learn from the other one, and the other one exactly the same thing. So thank you so much, Prof Ndona, for that. I think I saw a hand there from Prof Zide, and then will be followed by Dr. Mangisa, and then I see another hand there from Tosim Pandle. In that order, please. My professor there, Prof Zide.
Yeah, thank you very much, my professor. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Okay. Firstly, let me thank our two wonderful speakers, Prof Nkomo and Dr. Jabuva, am I right? Thank you very much for very insightful presentations.
We will make a doctor very soon here at Wild. So we'll push her. We'll make sure that she does get that red something that Dr. Bongani is wearing there.
Yes, she must indeed do that, my professor, because she comes from the famous Jabuva family. And Professor DDT Jabuva was an African language specialist early days of Forte. So, Lindelwa, you must take in the footsteps of your great-grandfather. Okay, that having been said, Professor Nkomo, who is the author of the book, Who is Holding Your Ladder?
Thanks, Prof, for the question. I said it's Samuel R. Chad. Samuel R. Yes, Samuel R. Chad, C-H-A-N-D.
Okay. No.
Yes.
Having said that, I'm just interested to know, as we talk about supportive leadership. Sometimes in the corporate world, as well as in the academia, you would find out there are corporate hyenas. Even though you try as best you can to be a supportive leader, you provide leadership, you provide resources, you provide time, you provide space. But sometimes, as I'm asking the question about who's holding your ladder, you find in most instances that people tend to suffer from a PhD syndrome, pull him or her down, particularly within us as African people. And it really saddens me that instead of pulling one another up, the tendency is to pull one another down. And that syndrome has, in fact, even now permeated the political arena. You find even in politics, there is that PhD syndrome. In corporate world, there is that PhD syndrome. So how can we deal with that, both to you, Prof Nkomo and Lindelwa? The question is really to both of you. You may provide different answers, but it really worries me, both as an academic and as a statesperson, because I'm now retired and I enjoy my retirement, but Professor Mazwe does not give me time to retire.
Okay.
Absolutely. Absolutely, so true, my professor there. Thank you. Please hold it there, dear panelists. Will get a chance to respond there. Let's take these two colleagues. Is Dr. Bangisa, and then will be followed by Tosin. But over to you, Brother Chuma.
Thank you very much, Prof Majola, and thank you to Professor Nkomo and Usis Lindelwa Jabuva. Indeed, the talk the speeches that they've given to us, very powerful speeches. It's like let them continue talking, and you'll just be a listener and not ask a single question. However, as you have prefaced the conversation, Prof Majola, it's an engagement. You are not a priest where we are not going to be asking any questions whatsoever. So this is the opportunity. However, thank you very much. I like the interface, of leadership as a concept. You look at theories, you look at the styles, how everything fits in together, when you are talking leadership. For instance, I was just becoming so emotional when you're talking about the enabling environment, which ties in very well with charismatic leadership. You can't be a charismatic leadership if you don't have an enabling trait, as that type of a leader. And it talks to transformational leadership as well, where one of the critical elements in it is individual consideration. And it ties in very well with emotional intelligence leadership, that talks to empathy, and social awareness. So that's why I'm saying I like how, all these leadership philosophies, and styles are interfacing, together. But I have got two questions. The first question, it is to both of you, powerful speakers. The first question, and I am asking this one from a viewpoint of a recipient. From a viewpoint of a recipient, where do you draw the line? Because as a recipient, you will continue to receive and receive and receive, and unintentionally, there's a dependency syndrome that Professor Nkomo is there, or Usis Lindelwa is there. At the end of the day, I will end up doing nothing. There is this dependency syndrome. When do you draw the line? In as far as you becoming supportive, to the people that you are leading. And the second one, it is from a perspective of a leader himself. Especially from what we have said, Sis Lulu, where you have said they are leaders, or as leaders, we don't have all the answers. Now, that can become easily a defense mechanism from a leader who is abdicative in his responsibility. When do you then judge? When do you then realize that this is just a defense mechanism from this person who always say, I don't have the answers, I don't have the answers, only to find that he is not into the leading game as a leader. Thank you very much, Prof.
Thank you. Thanks, Doc. Thank you very much. We'll take Tosi, and then after that, we'll go back to our panelists. Over to you, Tosi.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much to the speeches. Mine, I think maybe it's more of a comment than a question. This is to what Ms. Xingwana said. For instance, I work for a company where I was working both operations and also corporate office in terms of construction. So she talked about something like, she mentioned something like leaders, we are for instance, we're in a new era where leaders are faced now with businesses that's supposed to take cognizance of the stakeholders around them, when they do business. So that, there are a lot of things that you have to look at, environmental factors, legal factors, and so on and so on. So I'm thinking, for me, this is not a new thing in a way, because in the company that I worked in, for instance, a couple of years back, when I was at operations, I introduced
The
this.
line is bad.
Is it bad?
No, we can hear you. Go ahead, please. Go ahead.
Oh,
Go
okay.
ahead, Prof. Go ahead.
Okay, I work in a company where I introduced that let's have partnership with stakeholders to a point like this was more like health and all that. So on projects that we're working in. And, it was working at operations level. When I went to sell that idea to corporate level, they were not ready for it. The leadership didn't want to take it. And it was not about finances, because we had finances from CETA to run projects, but they were not ready because of logistics, but we were ready at operations. So I'm looking now, we are saying, who's supporting the leaders? There are people out there who are supporting the leaders, even within the company, whether they're operations or ever, they are there, they got the skills, they're supporting you. And you mentioned Project 2063. We won't be there. And we're not starting now. You've got people with the skills, but you're not really utilizing them. I think it comes back to this thing of saying you've got the skills, but you don't want to utilize them. You've got people with skills, whether they're internal or an external, you're not utilizing them. You're waiting for a situation until the popo hits the fan, then it's too late. So I'm saying today, somebody's got to do it. I may not have the voice to do it, but I may have the skill to do it, whoever it is. So that's where I'm at. So I just wanted to say, for me, somehow I don't see it as a new thing for other companies. Maybe for other companies it is. That's where I'm at. Okay.
Thank you. Thanks, Sis Tosi. Thank you so much. Very insightful there. Let's go back to our panelists. Then we'll take another round. Sede, we recognize you there. We'll come back to you. Prof Nkomo, over to you, my sister.
Thank you, Prof. Thank you to the questions that have been posed, and thank you to Sister Tosi for the comment. Let me just first start. I think in one of when I started, I did say that when you are a leader in terms of the PhD, pull her down. It is, I mentioned a word there, to discern, right? Because there are people who come close to you with an intention to make sure that you fail, or they will come to you to remind you in future, by the way, remember, you have been put by us in this position. And therefore they expect to do less because they have voted you in or elected you. And their assumption is that because they have voted for you or elected you, they are not expected to perform. And therefore it calls for a leader who will be able, when you're a supportive leader, you should be able then to bridge the gap between the job stress and the job performance. Make sure that when the person comes next to you, performance has to happen. Performance has to be measured. Performance has to be reported. Non-performance, whether you have nominated me or elected me, non-performance has to be dealt with accordingly, and fairly so, because it is non-performance at the end of the day. And if it calls for you to really part in terms of the relationship, then let it be, because at the end of the day, it is all about performance. So that's what I would say, Prof Zidi, that for me, it is about discernment. And as you move with the team, there will be things that we observe, the behavior, the attitude in terms of the work. But when we discuss something else, people are up and about. But when you discuss work, then they start, ignoring the key aspects. So therefore, you need to create boundaries as a supportive leader. Then it means you need to part ways. Let it be. So that's my take on the PhD. Yes. Okay. And thank you, Prof, for raising that. And the other one is Dr. Mangisa spoke about the as a recipient, You will keep on receiving, knowing that a supportive leader will be there to do it for you. That's one of the disadvantages, and it is there on literature that says the disadvantage of supportive leadership, it can create dependency at some point. That is why it is important when you start engaging in this relationship, you just need to make it clear between the two parties that this relationship has a goal, and this goal is ultimately to have results. And we have an understanding of this is where we are starting, and this is where we are intending to end, and this is how we're going to achieve this. So as soon as there is dependency, you will be able to pick it up early. That come reporting time, no, I didn't do it, and there's a lot of stories. So you need to just set the boundaries, have an agreement, and then make sure that there will be that continuous reporting, continuous feedback. You will be receiving feedback as the supportive leader, or you will be receiving feedback as the recipient to say, you are now non-performing. Can we look at it? I have observed the trend that there is this with you whenever I need results. Can we look at it? Then you look at it together and plan together. So that's briefly what I can say. Thank you, Prof.
Thanks, Prof. Thank you. Over to you, Sis Lindelwa.
I think Prof Nkomo has covered some of the questions, but I just want to emphasize that there was a question around the dependency syndrome. Actually, at the point where you take corrective action or you decide to part ways, you do that with a clear conscience because you've done everything to support this employee and they still don't perform. And therefore, you will agree, you will part ways, and you can show that you have done everything that you needed to do. So I just wanted to add that bit. And then where I said, as leaders, we don't have all the answers. And I'm sure you know these types of leaders who will employ and surround themselves with all sorts of specialists, your IT executive, your HR executive, your finance executive, but at the end, they become a master of all. Yeah. It is not possible. It's just not possible. And why are you not utilizing all these people who have got the skills and the capacity to support you? And it takes humility and an acknowledgement that we can only deliver as a collective if we understand and we come up with a common purpose. It can't just be me alone as a CEO who's got all the answers. I must tap into the skill, the experience, the capacity, the wealth of knowledge that the people that I brought into this organization can bring into the table. So that's where I was coming from. And you still find a lot of leaders who are very autocratic, who have all the answers, and it doesn't work, especially now. It never worked before, but it doesn't work even more now in the 21st century. Tosi, your comments are very, very valid. You were saying as operations, you get it. You go and consult with all the relevant stakeholders, but when you bring the inputs into the corporate, or rather to the broader EXCO leadership team, they don't buy it. But then there is a problem right there, because what are those deliverables you are held collectively accountable for as a collective now, as a collective, as a leadership team? And how can you support each other? How is it that one portion of the leadership team gets it and one part of the leadership doesn't? So there's a problem there. There is a need to work on that. There is a need to go back to the drawing board, support each other, co-create and reflect again on what you are there for and what you are held accountable for as a team. Then I just want to go back to the PhD, pull her down or pull him down syndrome. Professor Nkomo has responded to that. But I just want us to ponder this one. What is it that in us, deep down in us, doesn't see the good in the next person? What is it in us doesn't want the next person to rise? What is it in us, deep down in us, that makes us to want to be the only one who shines? I think that's a question that we as Africans must grapple with and try and resolve, because we will never go forward. We will never, 2063 will never materialize if we keep pulling each other down. So it's something that we really, really need to think about and develop a generous spirit. But also the other trend that is coming out in the world is a trend where answers don't necessarily come from one party or one person. Even from your opposition, there might be good proposals that can take us forward. So leaders must develop the ability to handle and be able to deal with ideas that don't necessarily sit well with them. That's very important. The other thing around the issue of pull her down or pull him down syndrome is actually very sad for me, because if you look around, especially in government, we have lost a whole lot of good leaders who became very frustrated because of this pulling him down syndrome, and they just left. They walked away. And who loses? We all lose, basically. So I just want to leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you very much to our panelists there. Thanks a lot. We will take, there was another hand, but obviously I think, I don't know whether the colleague lowered or the head. There was a hand from Galaxy J6. I don't see it anymore, but I will take CD and Tuko, and then will be followed by, and always people in this platform, they know that we always, apologize. Obvious, we like to know people by name. So when we are calling them by the names of their phones, it's sometimes uncomfortable. But I'm sure the colleagues will be able to let us know who their name, because we wouldn't like to know you by Galaxy A03 call, but we'd like to know. But we start with Sadie first. Sadie, over to you, my sister.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Prof. And thank you so much for this wonderful platform. It's my first time, and I am so thrilled and honored and really, really privileged to be amongst such greatness. Really, I appreciate this so, so much. I wanted to just thank Prof Nkomo as well as Lindelwa, really echoing the sentiments that everybody has already mentioned about the wonderful words that you shared with us today. And I wanted to say that, Prof Nkomo, you mentioned that the recipient will not benefit from the supportive leadership if they don't position themselves to learn. And in your further response now, you also mentioned how it is important for them to deliver on what they need as per their contract with their supporter. And I wanted to say, I think it was Nduna who said that the person also has to give. And I really wanted to emphasize what type of giving I have experienced will work. So there is no growth in receiving only. You will grow if you receive and you give.
Yeah.
And the type of giving would be in giving, putting in that effort. It is their own growth. Putting in, giving up some things. Sometimes we have to sacrifice some things. And one of the things that I have come to learn as a growing coach has been giving up your ego as a leader. And there's a lot of damage that is done in organizations out there, and the damage is so dire because it goes beyond just the organization. When after I have been a manager or a leader in an organization, I come home and I'm a mother and I'm a wife, I'm a sister, I'm an aunt. If I've been wounded by my ego leader, my leader that's leading by the ego, how much will I be bleeding on everyone else around me? And that is why it's a never-ending cycle. So that is one of the biggest things that leaders or even anyone that's receiving, even the one that's giving, needs to give up or to give. Their ego needs to be released, and they really need to position themselves rightfully so that they can take. As coaches, we also know that if the person is not coachable, there's nothing we can do. There too, there's another form of giving from that person. So I really just wanted to echo that and say, sure, it is so critical. It's very important. I appreciated that share, that nugget, Prof Nkomo, that you gave there. And I also wanted to talk a little bit to the PhD syndrome. I have been in an organization where the PhD syndrome was encouraged, unfortunately. Not directly. When you pull others down and you come on top of them, you were praised for it. And you were almost given more gas, more petrol to keep on igniting and keeping this fire burning. And it was toxic for the environment. And the challenge that I wanted, the thing that I had, the thought that I had was to say, it is something that I want to challenge the executives that I would be coaching about, because those executives are the ones in some way or another that are allowing it. And it comes across in one way or another in the health checks in organizations where people say, my voice is not heard, I'm disregarded, and it comes in various forms and shapes. And it boils down to, what is the executive or the leader allowing? Because that is where the culture is. If our executives can be uncomfortable and be comfortable in the discomfort of something like that, as you said, Lindelwa, then I think that we can really start moving, because the executives really set the tone for the culture. They set the climate of the organization in what they do, in the things that they do. So if they allow it, then we will be fighting, we will be chasing our tails forever on end. And those were my 2 cents worth. And Dr. Tuna, I wanted to say amen to all that you said. It was so empowering. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Sadie. Thank you so much. By the way, colleagues, as we are talking about the PhD syndrome, next week, as you know, most of you will be having our conference and the book launch. And in this book, pages after pages, they're addressing such things. different barriers the women are facing, the challenges, the dynamics. And the good with the book is that also there are guidelines, there are proposed or proposals and the suggestion. It's a very good book. You can't afford not to have this book as your reference wherever you go. So please do, and I know most of you have registered. If you have not registered, I did say last week, and I'm saying again this today, that will be a criminal, really. There's no way that you attend these sessions and you don't attend the conference, where now there'll be more speakers and there's a book written and it's just for you to come. So really, I'm just mentioning because you keep on referring to the PhD and it is addressed there in the book. So I would like to encourage you, please do come. Those people who are around, Gauteng, try your utmost best to come in person. Obviously, I know that people are working, but people there's this fatigue about the online now. For the last 2 years, we've been online. Our conference last year was online. So if you are able to come and meet people, mingle, talk to people, do that. But if you are, for whatever reason, you can't, and then we'll also streamline or live streaming on, or rather Zoom as well. So please come in numbers. The conference is only 350 per person. It includes venue, includes refreshments, includes fellowships, networking, listening to all these powerful speakers, and include the book as well. Can you imagine what a package that we're giving you as well? So that was an advert there, but I thought let me just share with you, and looking forward to see you there next week. Now I see that I don't know, someone was calling himself Galaxy, is our own colleague here, Dr. Sifuku. Dr. Sifuku, over to you, my brother. Thank you for really changing that, because we would not have known if we didn't know. Over to you, my doc.
Thanks, thanks, and evening, Prof, and evening to our esteemed guests or speakers and the other. For me, I just want to touch the thin line between supporting people and babysitting. If our speakers can touch on that. And then the other thing, we got secretaries or the previous people who have them in the office. Is the fear of the unknown, or is that people trust that they know, or the support, or they don't? There's the fear of not getting the same support, or is just that people just like to be surrounded by their close allies. I just want the speakers to touch on that.
Thanks, Doc. Thank you very much. I see the speaker, or rather the hands there. I see it seems like Dr. Mangis, I want to come back. My brother, Semtima. But before we go to the next round, and also to the speakers, there are very interesting things that is happening there in the chat room. We recognize you, colleagues, for your wonderful contribution there. We may not be able to read everything, but we can see it. Brother Andre, yours is very long. It's very long. I don't know if you want to express yourself, my brother, because really to read all these things to be very difficult. We'll take Andre Young, and then probably go back to the panelists, then we'll go and take other colleagues after that.
Thank you, Prof Mazwe. Your speaker, Lindelwa, I'm clapping hands there because I'm celebrating in your vibration, in bringing it so clear. I'm a scholar of leadership. I've been listening to Mazwe now for some nearly 15 years, learning from his leadership example, and your verbalization and vibration of leadership came across very clearly. I added some words that I took from another text, that leadership is really a psychosocial influencing dynamic. And how do we apply the psychodynamic towards the way we stimulate conscious and unconscious and emotional responses within us and in the interrelational dynamics between us? Because really, you nailed it. The social that really talks to the relational behavioral phenomena that exists between us. And South Africa has got a history and a culture and a political discourse that has affected leadership in corporate, that, quite frankly, some great examples of leadership and some of the worst examples of leadership. But the social dynamic, this movement, this thing that's fluid, leadership is not only about skills and competencies. It's about a way of being, and you nailed it in terms of the way you brought it across. So, I think the fact that we have a leader like you giving us this instruction tells me that we actually need to take you out of the coaching job and put you in a top job of leadership to lead in our country. And that's our challenge. We have the leaders. You are right here. I'm listening to you growing in your presence. I'm going, why don't we deploy this one? But we've got the wrong deployment mechanisms going on at the moment. So I just wanted to say, thank you so much. I took so much from the little that I was able to join in on, and I celebrate you and Sister from Wits in terms of your vibration. I think the woman leadership we're seeing emerge in our country, specifically your two examples today, Mazwe, tells us that we actually need to let the woman lead us. And I'll leave it there.
Thank you very much, my brother, Andre. Thank you. Let's go back to our panelists. Let's start with Sis Lindelwa this time around, then we'll go to Prof. We'll follow there. Sis Lindelwa.
Thank you very much. Thank you to Andre. I didn't hear the second question around about the secretary. Maybe you will repeat that, but there was also a question about babysitting and supporting, that there is a thin line there between babysitting and supporting. Remember, you've brought in people who have skills, you've gone through a proper recruitment process. So it's not like you've brought in, we're not talking about people who have been brought into organizations without the skills, without the experience, without the competencies. We are saying these people are coming in, they even have the academic qualifications, but the rate of change is such that we must continue learning together. And it's called co-learning together on a daily basis. We can no longer rely on what we learned at business school or at university or wherever we learned it. So change is constant, and therefore we must continuously learn. So there is no babysitting there. I think babysitting happens when you bring in people through a back door and they don't have what it takes to do the job. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about people who are rightfully where they are supposed to be, but the challenges are such that we need to continuously learn together. So that's where the support is coming in. Is the question about the secretary? I didn't quite get that question. Prof, I don't know if you can repeat it.
Yeah, maybe Prof Nkomo will take that one. If who asked the question? Was it about what?
I also didn't get it, Prof. The sound was not that
Secretary.
good. Yes.
Secretary.
Yes. I heard
Because-
I
something
think there was
about the
something.
secretary.
There was also something about why do you have to surround yourself with all those different people? But the question itself was not that clear. Maybe if we can ask the person who asked to just repeat the question, please.
And who asked
Okay.
it?
Okay, it was me, Prof. What I
Oh,
was
Sifu.
trying
Oh, Doc, yeah.
to say
Go ahead, Doc.
is
Still not clear.
Yes.
Yeah. So no, I understand. Yeah, his line was not clear. I remember.
Not clear at all.
Leaders, when they move from one institution to another, they go there and bridge.
The
Yeah,
line is
maybe-
very
Yes,
maybe-
poor.
so I mean,
Maybe
like,
Mr.
what
Sifuku can
influences
write on the
it's
chart.
just the fear
Yes,
of the
yes.
unknown, or you don't trust the new people who are going, something like that. I just want to know what influences the even CEOs or some junior manager there, and after that.
Doc, it's definitely very difficult to hear you. Maybe if you don't mind, you can just write it there on the, on the chat room, please. Sorry about that, Doc. Your line is not quite. We can't hear you. So maybe you can just write it down in the chat room if you don't mind, please. Yeah. Okay. Were you done, Sis Lindelwa?
Yes, I was done. It's just that I didn't get the question about the
Yes.
secretary. Yeah.
Oh, no, I understand. Yeah, I know, we are all struggling. Yeah. Dr. Nkomo, over to you.
Maybe just to add, Prof, in the issue of babysitting and supporting, Mrs. Lindelwa nailed it. And remember, we are dealing with people here, or we are supporting people who are not a fully ready product, but we want to be part of refining their skills. And therefore, as we build this relationship between the recipient and the provider of supportive leadership, for me, there's three important things that you must understand as the times are volatile and uncertain. The minds for both should be the willingness to learn something new or a skill or whatever, be willing to learn, whether you are a provider or a recipient, and the willingness to unlearn whatever is not working. It must come from your intrinsic being to say, you know what, I've been holding on this one, but it is not taking me anywhere in terms of my growth and development. And then make a decision that I am unlearning this one and leaving it because it's not taking me forward, or I cannot move any forward in terms of me holding on this, no matter how precious you thought it was. And also be open to relearning as you grow, as you work with different people, as you surround yourself with different people and different skills, and maybe people who are at a different level than you, or who are lower than you, but are bringing in new skills and new competences. Be willing to relearn, whether you are a recipient or a provider. You will then grow, because as Lindelwa has said, you are co-creating. So you are never an expert and say, as a leader, therefore I know it all. No one and no leader can do it alone. You do it with the team. And therefore you need to acknowledge that people come in with their different skills, their different attributes, their different competences, and therefore you need to work together so that you can achieve the common goal, which is the result at the ultimate end. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks to both panelists. Thank you. Dr. Mangisa, I know that you've spoken. I don't know whether it's as we always say, is a point of exigence or is a follow-up. If you don't mind, my dog, can we just give Brother Sam Tima? And then I see another hand there from Dr. Sbong, and then we'll come back to you, my brother. Let's go to Sam Tima. Over to you, my brother.
Thank you, Prof. I don't have questions, but I'm sort of wanting to remind ourselves of our two speakers' challenges put forward to us, because I'm hearing us talking about in the third person. even though it's not explicitly so. But when I listen to our inputs, I think we are forgetting that we are talking to ourselves, and the two colleagues, Lindelwa and Dr. Nkomo, have actually come here to talk to us as leaders and have challenged us in so many ways. Because if we don't do that, then we are going to remain stuck, all of us. Because the problem with leadership is it's always about others, but not ourselves. And that's where we get it wrong. We are students of management, managers and leaders. We are sitting here today. We're being challenged, and let's look into ourselves, because we want people to emulate us if we are good leaders. The first point that was raised by Dr. Nkomo, which is so profound in terms of conscious leadership model, and that says that it starts with you. Hence, she was asking the questions, who's holding your ladder and whose ladder are you holding, if I may paraphrase. But she's actually saying that the first question you need to ask, and that is really the core of leadership today. It starts with self. If you cannot be able to manage yourself, for instance, in terms of just taking care of yourself, having empathy to yourself, and being content with the fact that you are a student, you don't know it all. And Lindelwa has spoken to that. So I want to leave that challenge with ourselves, that leadership today starts with us. And let's do the work ourselves, and then we can impact the others. And then secondly, is the whole issue of what the Prof is organizing here, and that's why we are here. The world is doing exactly that, sharpening the saw. One of the principles in the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People is sharpening the saw. You are not going to lead anybody very well if you don't really continuously develop yourself. And that's why we are here. So I want to really emphasize that. Then, of course, my sister Lindelwa spoke to something which is a fast-growing phenomenon in coaching, which is the democratization of coaching. It is no longer exclusive to the C-suite. It is available to all the leaders, and through technology, there is a driving effort to make it part of the human capital development, not as an exclusive, not as a default, but as critical, especially post-COVID-19. So I was really smiling when Lindelwa was touching on that one, because that is why we are inviting everybody out there to come into the coaching, because that is one of the competencies you will be expected to have. And then lastly, the other point, or second last, the other 2 points that were touched by my fellow coach Lindelwa, which is really intergenerational thing. This thing is real. The baby boomers are going out, the Generation Z are here, and they demand that they take over. And that means that you may find a situation where you are a leader and leading generations that don't really hear you and don't understand you and don't agree with you. They're not going to negotiate with you. And I always say to the leaders, why is it that when you talk about the problems or the challenges that your people are giving you, you become so emotional? And then I said, that means something is happening inside you that you are not listening to, which is mostly your emotions and how these things are handling you. It's going to make you sick. You're not going to cope. So can we help you from a coaching point of view to look inside you under waters and deal with these emotions that you are told that you must suppress them because a leader must be strong. So, and then of course, the last point, which is all of us must be embracing. In fact, people like Dr. Jonathan Passmore and many others outside Africa are actually inviting us to contribute into this fast-growing profession called coaching. And coaching has already contributed a lot. Ubuntu is now being embraced as the Africa's contribution to coaching. But I think it goes more than that. It goes into what is culturally Africa's contribution to this phenomenon called coaching that everybody wants to be involved in. So those for me are my contribution. I actually have wanted to just sit and enjoy the 2 speakers' contribution because it has really been very beautiful. But as a fellow professional in the industry, I felt that I needed to edify them and affirm them. I also throw a challenge back to us that let's come to the world every day, not to come and talk about others, how bad they are as leaders, but look into ourselves, because others are talking about us and we just don't hear them and we don't know what they say about us. And therefore we must open ourselves, make ourselves vulnerable That is really my contribution, and also acknowledgement of the powerful input from my two colleagues. Thanks, Prof.
So true, so true. Thanks, my brother. It's so true. That's exactly why we are here every Wednesdays. All of us, we are very busy, we'll be doing other things, but it's just that let's have a safe space as leaders. That's why we call it community of leaders. It's where peers talk to other peers, correct each other, admonish each other where possible, and encourage each other, sharpen each other. That's exactly why we are here. Thanks, Sam, definitely to put it so wonderful there. Dr. Sibongiseni, over to you, my brother.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Prof, for the opportunity. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and special thanks to our guest speakers this evening, Prof Nkomo and future Mrs. Lindelwa, or future doctor, future doctor. I love that. I believe, Prof, when you say it's coming. So wish you well, my sister. So, ladies and gentlemen, actually, I'm coming here from a perspective of a young person. As you can see, I still fall under the category of youth. I get moved whenever I hear someone speaks about Vision 2063 or about the future, basically. I categorize myself as a visionary leader. And I'm still a learner in terms of this space of leadership. And that's why I keep coming in these Wednesday sessions, because there's so much to learn. Even today, like the topic of the day, which is supportive leadership, is quite new to me. And I learned a lot. I have a lot of notes in front of me. And I have a question to Prof Nkomo, and maybe our future doctor can also assist in taking that one. First of all, I come from a Toastmasters International, which is a global organization that teaches people about leadership skills, public speaking skills, as well as communication skills in general. So as such, I am appointed as of last month into one of the crucial leadership roles in Southern Africa. And I'm an area director. And now I understand why I need to keep coming here. So with that being said, as a new leader, I still have a lot to learn. And at Toastmasters, the reason why I had to mention that part, we always call ourselves, there's a saying which goes, at Toastmasters, we're kings and queens of acronyms and abbreviations. I got excited when I heard for the first time an acronym that Prof spoke about in terms of that I see this that can solve a lot of problems. It's basically a model, the way I see it. It's an acronym STAR. S stands for situation, T for task, A for action, and R for results. So our mission this year as Toastmasters International in Southern Africa is to redefine leadership in Africa. If you look at leadership in Africa, if I can ask you, what could be the one word that you can describe the leadership climate in our country, in our continent? But that's the question you need to ponder. So we have to ask ourselves that question. And then as we are redefining leadership, what would we love to replace that one thing we are not happy with in Africa with? So in other words, for me, I realize I think it's corruption. If those two things, if you look at Africa and the way things are in our political space, I think most of you can agree that basically that's what it is. We're always hearing about corruption in the news, corruption that, corruption that, corruption that. So us being those young leaders who are redefining leadership in Africa, the word that I would like to replace corruption with in Africa for me would be competence. So I think we need to be in that space, especially as young people in the future, if we want to see a very progressive, a very successful and dynamic Africa and successful Africa, we need to replace corruption with competence. And with that being said, in this mission that we are in, back to Prof Nkomo and her model, STAR, I just want to ask advice from you, Prof. Using this model, obviously, you need to analyze the situation. That's what we advise. We need to maybe have tasks like define goals and do come up with a plan and execute, and as well as take action. And then the last part, which is R, which is we'll get results after all. Maybe if you can paint a picture using, I don't know, a scenario with a practical example, maybe also our future doctor can assist in this one. Maybe you don't have to answer now. We can take another question, then you can answer later. Just think of a scenario where we can maybe at a work environment, if you also think about what we're speaking about in terms of the pull head down or pull him down syndrome, and maybe you can also think about those situations using this model. How can you use this model in order to solve that problem? So I think, I hope that question is clear. And thanks a lot, Prof, for the opportunity. And I'm really looking forward to hear, like in a practical scenario, how can you use this model to produce the results that we are looking for? Thank you so much.
Thank you. So thanks, Doc. Thank you very much. By the way, Dr. Sbongsen has written a very powerful book on public speaking. I was so honored to give a keynote address on Saturday in his book launch. I'll really recommend that book to everyone. We'll find a way in terms of how we can get his book. A very, very good book. Thank you so much. And Sis Lindelwa, yeah, when we say future doctor, well, we mean it. You know, let me just tell you one thing. I don't know, some of you were here. I don't know if you remember Dr. Zit or the Prof Zit and others. Few months ago, and then there is a sister that we have here. I don't know if she's here tonight. Usis Linda Peter, and she was talking, and then someone also called her doctor. And I told her that, look, that is prophetic, go for it. And I think a week or two,
Yes.
and this Linda enrolled with us. She's one of our students. She's doing a PhD now. She is so, Prof Zita can tell you, she is so enthusiastic about it. So we are here. I mean, really, we provide qualifications, masters, PhDs. So all those who want to enroll, please enroll with us, and then we'll support you. We'll make sure that you get that PhD or that master's. So Sis Lindelwa, think about it, and then we'll support you, my sister. Last time we started with you, let's start with Prof Nkomo this time around. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Prof. Let me first congratulate Dr. Sbongsen for the appointment and wish him well in the position. And I will then just take one of the examples from one of my CAPs, where I was the leader for over 6 years, right? The first 3 years was on a deputy position, and then the next 3 years was on leadership. So when I analyzed the situation, the message from the institution was that you need to increase numbers in terms of postgraduate or in terms of students in general. But then when I looked at my department, I was like, if taking postgraduate students, particularly from masters and PhDs, and yet the team is only 3 of us with PhDs, how do we then balance the whole expectation of having more masters or having more PhDs? Then I decided, okay, this is the situation. How do I take it forward? Presented to the management to say, this is where we are. And for us to move forward and align ourselves with the increased number for postgrad, we need to make sure that we provide resources for the staff, look at the current workload and realign it, and then make sure that we bring in extra resources to make sure that they are accommodated. It was not an easy journey. It's just easy to set targets, but to set processes to achieve those targets is not always easy. But I had to push with the support of my then manager. And I'm speaking to you now. I had to sit with individuals to say, you are busy with your PhD and you are not completing. What are the issues? And people had to table, these are my challenges, but these are my proposals. If this can be taken care of, I will get there. Then we had to implement that with the particular individual, 10 of them, one by one. And 3 finished. The goal was to complete, 3 finished. The next year, 3 finished. I'm talking to you now, we are 10 with all of us with PhDs. So the goal was to make sure that we get PhDs, their numbers, have tripled. We can't now anymore afford to say we cannot supervise postgrad. So the situation analysis, what is it that needs to be done? How is it going to be done? And the results we are seeing now. So that's the simplest example that I can think of at the top of my head now, to say it is not an easy journey. It's not something that's going to happen overnight. It will take perseverance, it will take commitment, and it will take you to just persist and persist until you get the results that you are looking for. So I hope, Dr. Sibongiseni, that example gives some sense in terms of the model of the STAR. Thank you.
Go ahead, Sis Lindelwa.
Yes, thank you. I also would like to congratulate Dr. Sibongiseni. And I get very excited when I see young people, especially African young people. So, and you are very right. One of the things that keep us awake at night is corruption. I would like to say to you, specifically as a young leader, go back to other young people, talk to them about values-based leadership. How do we restore the quality of values that we had, let me say, as a country, because we had 2 Nobel Prize winners in South Africa. We had the late Nelson Mandela, we had Bishop Emeritus Desmond Tutu. That's something big. And we had a whole lot of other leaders whose values were impeccable. So we don't have an excuse.
And
we can't say
Dr. de Klerk as well.
Okay. So we can't say we never had role models. How do we go back there? And how do we learn? You know, the school fees, Bongiseni, the school fees for state capture were over R1 billion. So we paid the school fees. My generation made a lot of mistakes. How do you, as young people, with us, because we must work together on this, how do we make sure that we take those volumes that were produced by Judge Zondo and learn from them and make sure that future leaders like yourself, Dr. Sibongiseni, don't repeat the same mistakes that we made. We want to be, at the end, we want to be good ancestors. And I always hope that we will correct the mistakes that we made. And we can only correct our mistakes working with you as young people. The last point I want to make is around consciousness and working on yourselves, especially you as young people. If you do nothing else but just work on yourself, spend time working on yourself, you will take this continent very, very far. So let me leave it there.
Wow, thank you. Thank you very much to our panelists there. I saw a hand there from, but it's lowered his or her hand. I think so. It's written nk.stephens. But if you are covered, it's fine. Dr. Xuma, I've got a challenge. I'm going to be load shedded at 8 o'clock. So I wonder if you want to make your point as brief as possible, and then I would like our panelists to give us their parting shots so that we can close the session. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. Indeed, it is correct that a river cannot drink its water. And indeed, now we are drinking from these, many rivers, that have spoken. It is becoming more healthier and healthier, from a self-introspection point of view. However, it's a follow-up question to you, Prof Nkomo. Where you said, when I was asking, about a dependency syndrome from a recipient perspective, and you made a comment to say, it doesn't matter, you know, whether you are elected or not. But when we talk non-performance, we need to deal with that. You see, now I want you to practicalize this because we are sitting with a challenge currently in the country where decisions, you know, cannot be made, you know, decisive decisions cannot be made just because you put me into that position. And if I were to make a drastic decision, chances are I may not come back, you know, to lead. You know, how do we then, you know, from your comment, how do we deal with that while we are trying to be as supportive as ever? I will reserve the other question, Prof, because I wanted to ask another question for our future Dr. Usis Lindel. Thank you.
Thanks, my brother. Definitely we'll find another opportunity. We'll create another opportunity. This is a very important topic. As you can see, the time is not, or the time is against us. My dear sisters, I would like you to respond, but also to give us your parting shots so that I can close the session after you. We start with you, Professor Nkomo. Over to you, sis.
Thank you, Prof. I will just start with the responding briefly to Dr. Mandisa's question. Yes, you've elected me, or yes, you've nominated me, but you've nominated me to lead or to provide supportive leadership. And I'll go back to what Lindelwa said, ethical leadership, values. You put me in that position to make changes and not to implement what you want, but to make changes and to transform or the organization or the environment that I find myself in. So it is my responsibility. If I were to part then because I'm not doing what you want me to do, let it be. Like Sister Lindelwa said, I will part with a clear conscience, knowing that, you know what, I did my best. I applied or implemented ethical leadership or value-based leadership. And if I'm chased away, let it be. So that would be briefly my response. And then the takeaway message, just when I sum up, is that in terms of intergenerational gap, when it comes to all of us as leaders, for me, I'm going back to the three aspects that I noted. Let's just be open to learn, unlearn, relearn, continuously, consistently, be open to unlearning and relearning. And for me, this platform also gave us or gives us a lot to think about, a lot to unlearn, and a lot to relearn, to make sure that as leaders in leadership, we also produce other leaders that are going to have value-based leadership styles. Thank you so much, Prof.
Thanks, Prof. Nkomo. And over to you, Sis Lindelwa.
Mine is going to be very short. We are a young continent. We have a lot going for us as a continent. We've got a lot of potential. We are a rich continent. So let's just use that and create a prosperous Africa for the benefit of future generations. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, my dear sisters. What a powerful, very important topic that we had tonight. We've really reminded each other so many things. I think there is a message there on the chat room from Seli Lidwaba, says the reflective question posed by Semtima was crucial. Each need to reflect our leadership approach, how enabling or disabling it is for people to unleash their potential. Powerful. That sums everything. That really, what have we learned as we always come here, learning, relearning, and unlearning. So thank you so much for this powerful session. Ladies and gentlemen, to those who joined us for the first time, we thank you. And remember, we meet every Wednesday. Next week, Wednesday, we'll still be having a Wednesday session. And then on Thursday, we'll go straight to the conference. But we will be having our normal Wednesday session. And I saw that the registration form was posted on the chat room by Dr. Bongankala. So thank you so much. Thank you so much once more to everyone who attended tonight. We'll meet you again next week, Wednesday and at the conference as well. If you want to get the copy of this, the copy of this session, you may want to follow, or you can get it from my YouTube channel. Is Prof Mazwe Majola channel. You can subscribe there, and then there are many other what you call material that you'll find. So you'll get it from there. Thank you so much. May God bless you. The session is adjourned now until we meet again next week. Thank you and goodbye.
Thank you, Prof. Thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
Prof. Bye.
Thanks a
Bye.
lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you.